What's going on, guys? Going to do our live Strong Life Q&A with Matt Wenning. This is going to be the second episode we've had him on. Strong Life podcast. It's also going to get up on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe on iTunes. Big thanks. Shout out to intechstrength.com. They are our sponsor for the show. And once Matt hops on, we'll start answering your questions. And he's going to hop on here in a minute. He just texted me. And for those of you watching and listening, episode 146 is when we did the first episode. You guys can see that with all the show notes on the blog at zachevanesh.com. Okay? So we'll be talking training, nutrition, and see if we could get to some of your questions. Because it is a Q&A. Last time him and I just started going, and that's it, man. We started just making it all happen and couldn't get to a whole lot of questions. So we'll probably have about 30 minutes here. If anybody has questions, feel free to start posting them now. That'll give me an idea of where to direct the conversation with Matt. So let's see if I missed any questions out of the gate. Let some people get in here. We'll get rocking. Should be hopping on here soon. He just sent me a text message. Hope everybody's doing great out there, by the way. Not sure what the weather's like, but it's February, obviously, and it was 80 degrees yesterday in New Jersey. But today, it's going to get down to the 30s. All right, Matt's going to hop in here, so stand by. Cool, man. Thanks, everybody, for coming in. Matt, what's up?
What's up, boy?
Good to see you.
Nothing, man. What's going on?
So, what's going on this morning? Did you train already, or?
We're actually at Station 91 Fire Department this morning. So the shifts are transitioning right now, and then probably within the next 30 minutes, we'll start having firemen rolling in.
Okay, so we got about 30 minutes, maybe a little less.
Yeah, something like that.
Are you? I know you've been training a lot of the fire departments. It started a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Was it where you were visiting them, or they would come to your gym, train them up, and then do some periodic visits?
Well, how it happened is 2005. I was in Flex magazine as one of the strongest lifters in the world, and then also they talked about my degrees. So I had a master's degree. I just finished my master's at that time, and that caught the attention of Chief Al Wu up here at Washington Township. This was 2006. So I've been up here for 11 years. And they called, and they found my information and called me and asked me if what I was doing with the military, I could transfer over to the fire department.
Right.
So at that time, I went up there and interviewed with Chief Wu, and they liked what I had to say, but I also was smart enough in saying, hey, I don't know what kind of population you have up there, but for us to see some really good results, we're probably talking about, anywhere from 3 to 5 years to get these guys in good shape, because you're dealing with a culture change.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, you get a high school kid. Well, not even a high school kid. You get a college kid that's never even worked out or lifted weights. And to get them to change what they're doing, imagine doing that in their mid-30s, 40s, and 50s.
Yes. Yeah.
They never realized that was part of the job. So you get a lot of backlash. You get a lot of guys that don't want to train. They don't want to work out because that's not part of their job. That's not what they were signed on to do. So a lot of the old guys looked at it as extra work. They didn't look as, hey, this is a benefit for me. I'm getting a world-class guy to come in and show me stuff so I can have a better retirement. It took me a while to sell that. So it wasn't, hey, you're going to come in and do exactly what I tell you to do or you're fired. Whereas if we could do that, we probably get results a lot faster. But I knew going into it that it was going to be a culture change, and that was going to take anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Fast forward into about 2010, 11, I'd been there 4 or 5 years. We started collecting, right when I started, we started collecting insurance data on how much it was costing the department to do business insurance-wise, injuries, paid time off, insurance premiums, those types of things. In 5 years, we cut that in half, and in 8 years we cut it into a third. So anybody listening right now, we get on my Instagram when we get done, and I will post the insurance data. And that data is taken by the insurance companies, not by me. They were spending $500,000 a year in insurance, and last year we spent $70,000.
I've actually met you talking about like the backlash you got, especially from the experienced guys. I've met guys who really, who are in police and fire department who weren't really injured, but they would go and just get a surgery to get a year off or
dude, not uncommon, not unheard of. And that's the thing is like these guys are slowly figuring out that once you damage a joint, I don't care how many surgeries you get on it, it's not as the same as before it was injured.
I could speak to that, to the millionth degree. And I think that, sometimes I think we assume, meaning we people in the strength and conditioning industry, that people have even like a general understanding of, hey, you're this is going to make you feel better, or we assume that that's how they're looking at it. But what you said earlier is like they looked at it like, shit, man, I got this, so I could really just kind of chill out and not have this crazy job.
Yep.
And that mindset is something that we have a hard time even understanding, forget about relating to. So,
I think all the things that we hold, as a job dear, as far as what we call like security, I think the big thing that hurt the departments was the unionization. Because what it did is it didn't give the job to the person that could do it. It gave the job to the person that got in and stayed in. And I don't really word that to not really bust anybody's balls other than busting people's balls. But in reality, if you're on the fire department or the police department, it takes an act of God to get fired. They'll move you around. They'll, if you don't want to work hard anymore, they'll put you over in fire protection or whatever. But the thing of it is you should have this job as long as you can do it, not as long as you want it.
Yeah, I've seen that in police as well. Seeing guys on the police force do something, quote unquote bad, and then they just move them around. Okay, you won't be on the road anymore. We'll just keep you in an office behind a desk. And it's very hard. And, I was thinking about that because if you are, I'm not sure if it's like this at all the universities, but if you're a strength coach, you usually have basically a contract year to year, which is cool because I look at it like, hey man, if you're not awesome and you're not keeping up with things and getting better, then, your superior could look at you, or all the administration could say, listen, he's just not cutting it. There's other people that want this job who are, who are better, who bring more energy, who bring more knowledge, and we're going to move them out. So yeah, the unions and teaching and all that stuff certainly make it tough. So what are some things that you think are maybe like top strategies you implemented to get them to trust you and to buy into the process, especially with those guys in their 40s who are probably on for a good 10 to 20 years?
I think it's just having the patience. I think a lot of the key to doing what I've done is having the patience to sit down and go, look, this is going to take a long time. So what I do is when I get these guys is I don't push their limits too fast. I build them up slow, and by the time a few years go by, their deadlift is double what it was.
What looks like an introductory workout for these guys? And also, I know some of these places I saw on your Instagram have your equipment. They've got your belt squat, but have you gone to places to start, and then I'm assuming they didn't have the equipment you wanted, they needed? How did you kind of work around it without the specialty equipment?
I think that's something you learn along the way. So when I first started at Washington Township, we obviously didn't have the equipment that I wanted right off the bat, right? But I learned that was a fatal error. So when I have 3 other departments I take care of here in town as well now. And before I even started with those departments, they had to go and buy all the stuff I wanted and had to have it before I started.
Yeah.
So I charged them an assessment fee to come in and tell them what they needed, and then they had to get all that stuff ready. So when I started day one, we could shorten that 5-year span down, because what I found, what the big limiting factor was with the injury rates and saving the money, was having the proper equipment in place.
Right. They can't squat with a bar on their back, or, my back hurts. I can't do all these things. I like how you also charge them an upfront fee just to come in and do an assessment. I think people treat you as a pro from the gate, and that's a tough thing in our.
The thing is, I mean, you got to have people respect your time, you know, and I think when people think something's free, they automatically think it's worthless.
Yeah.
So I've learned that people that struggle with clients being a pain in the ass or departments being a pain in the ass, they tend to not be making enough money.
Yeah.
You know, or charging enough, and that becomes a huge friction point. So you have to be obviously worth what you think your value is. I mean, obviously, but I think at the end of the day, the departments and the people you're working with have to look at your value as well. And if they, you know, you're doing a lot of things for free or to them seem not very valuable, then you're going to have a big problem. But the big thing, I think, if I were to give anybody advice just starting off doing stuff like this with departments is, one, make sure you have the proper equipment in place. Two, you got to have the knowledge to know what equipment do you actually need, because although we do powerlifting style workouts here, everything is based on getting them to be strong without increasing mileage. And that's where I think a lot of people fuck up is, back squat and deadlifts are awesome and we train them all the time. But sometimes a lot of the year, they're not the bread and butter of what we do. The bread and butter of what we do is traction based. We get them super proficient at belt squats. We get them super proficient at 45-degree back extensions. We get them super proficient at glute ham raises. All of these things are allowing the weakest muscle, posterior chain muscles, to be strong, but they're not increasing mileage on the spine or the joints.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to start transferring. I mean, you know, when I was a professional lifter, you know, I'm not that far out of it, but when I was trying to hit the biggest numbers I could hit, you know, some days I just had to deadlift, even though I knew it wasn't the best thing for me that day. But I was a competitor. Here, it's a different story. These guys are going to be on duty and be firemen or tactical guys or EMS, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Yep. They're going to be in the job for 20 to 30 years. Okay? That means whatever I do, I have to make sure that they can do it in 25 years. So a lot of the problem when we do these live feeds and stuff like that, people ask me personal training questions, the first thing I ask you, or not you in general, but people ask is, how long do you want to be around? Because if you want to be around for 2 years, do a fucking Chico program. You know, because it's going to put tons of miles on you. You're going to get the exact same pressure at the exact same way all the time. That's, if you only want to be good in 2 years and you don't care if you're fucked up when you're 30, have at it. But the problem is that kind of mentality, that type of powerlifting, classical powerlifting mentality will not work in a sporting or tactical division where you could have employees that are with you for 20 plus years. So you have to be very cautious on what you select exercise-wise to get the most benefit with the least amount of risk and the least amount of wear and tear.
They also, athletes, not just, you know, like I said earlier, it's like sometimes a lifter or a coach who's kind of like, that's how they define themselves through lifting. They don't realize the emotional strain that the athlete or, you know, a tactical, somebody who's not in love with lifting.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, somebody asked, hey, Matt, how do you incorporate sled drags? You know, you'll do sled drags yourself individually, 5-6 sets, you feel great. Somebody else after 2 or 3 sets, they're like hunched over. They're like, oh my God, they're so stressed by not just physical, but also emotional, which goes hand in hand. I think you're doing such a great job of taking that into account, realizing that if they are emotionally stressed from it, they're going to give you backlash and start going.
I mean, you know, there's a totally different side of the spectrum where stress comes from. So with athletes, they're going to class. You know, they're probably, if they're in high school, they're dealing with adolescence and all that shit, which I'd never want to go through in my entire life again, you know. But on the other side of the token, you're dealing with firemen that might have just cut somebody that's dead or injured out of a car. They're seeing blood everywhere. Somebody's guts are spilled out on the freeway. I mean, the stuff that these guys see on a daily basis, they're going and getting people that are damn near dead or dying in their house, and then they have to come in and lift. You know, I mean, the stress and emotional stress that stuff deals with is pretty intense, and the stuff that I didn't understand. I mean, I did a little bit working with the military, but these guys, you know, are dealing with this stuff on at least a monthly basis. They're dealing with somebody dying, or, you know, if you're calling, you know, you're having a heart attack or a stroke, or, you know, you're dead in your house, EMS comes get you.
Right.
You know, These guys are asked to come in and lift the next day, so or the next hour. And some of those things you have to keep in mind. What are you dealing with this full circle? And I think that's the hardest part we deal with, is being kind of online entities. Is you can't see the full circle, the full picture. Is what's the nutrition like? What's the sleep like? What's the stress level like?
That's so big.
Yeah, the first thing you have to deal with and have to do is ask questions. So when these guys come in, I'm like, hey man, how's your day going? Well, we just cut this dead guy out of a car. He just wrecked backwards and killed his whole family. That workout's going to change compared to what I had planned.
Yep. What do you do? When something like you get that kind of news, what does the workout look like? Does it become a workout where, okay, I'm just going to try to do something that doesn't require a ton of focus? So you're going to, what is
usually I transfer the workouts into volume. So we'll do stuff instead of max effort or speed where it's high neurological, high CNS activity. We'll do stuff that they can kind of just not lackadaisical go through, but just cut the rest periods down and make them breathe hard and have them do the same movements, but have them do it more in a, I guess if you want to call it, bodybuilding sense.
Yes.
Still attack the weak points, but we just do it bodybuilding style where they can kind of breathe through the sets and relax and just get a big pump versus come in and smash them with a heavy squat or a heavy deadlift.
Which feels great, that getting that pump, getting them to feel good is, that's
basically turn the workout into a stress reliever versus a stress builder.
The art of coaching, right? So I see somebody's run down, then I'm going to get that warm up. I incorporate bodybuilding into the warm up because I know when you start getting that pump, you feel great. Your body feels great. So the mind is huge.
It's a runner's high for them.
Yes, for lifters. What about how are you guys incorporating sleds at these firehouses? Do you guys use the sleds?
Yeah. So that was one of the first things, because obviously the cheapest things that we could have done when we first got here. But I'm a big proponent of dragging sleds around the hip. And the reason for that is when you're pulling forward, the sled's pulling backward and it's around your hip, it tends to give your lumbar spine a little bit of traction. Plus, I like the fact that sled work is fairly cheap and it can be attainable.
Yep. So
first thing I try to say is if somebody messages me and goes, hey, I don't have any sleds, what do? I'm like, get off your cheap fucking ass and go get some sleds.
It's so cheap. We're really gotten to I think we had this conversation during our first episode, but it was like we've really gotten to a place where like everybody wants a alternative, and it's like you could buy sleds for probably under $100 on Amazon, and also there's so much how-to. But last night you had a live session and you said, look, I'm just done training people who don't want to invest in the equipment because it's like the beginning stage of, you would say, well, listen, I've asked you a lot of questions. You don't have the equipment, number one. Then I started talking about nutrition and you said, I don't like that food, or I'm not hungry. And we got to really stop. It's like, man, I can't hear any more of that bullshit. You're not going to get better.
No. I think people think that me and you got to where we were by doing shit that was comfortable and easy.
That's the complete.
You know what I try to do? I think one of the biggest life lessons that I was ever taught, and I think I taught it to myself by over time of just punishing myself to getting stronger. But what I think the biggest lesson is that you need to make yourself a little uncomfortable every day, whether that's psychological, physical, career-wise, any of that thing. People that live uncomfortable tend to get a lot more done and a lot more impressive things done by the end of their career. I just never wanted to look back at 50 and go, fuck, man, I wish I'd have pushed harder doing this, or I wish I'd have done that. Right now, in my stage of life at 38 years old, I have done everything further than I ever thought I could have at 15. And I like that feeling. I like the feeling of knowing that I pushed my body to the physical without getting hurt too much, the physical fucking limit of my strength capabilities. I pushed my education to as far as I could go. And now I'm pushing my career and my gym and all of my stuff I'm dealing with these fire guys as far as I can. I don't really think I could have done it any better. And I'm sure all of us could have done something better. But I'm looking back now and like compared to what I thought I could do at 15, I'm 10,000 steps ahead of where I thought I would be. And that's a good feeling to have. And I think a lot of people miss that in life. They look back and go, man, I never gave it 100%. I never did this. I never did that. I never had that.
Yeah. I know that I remember listening to your episode on Mark Bell's Powercast, you're talking about, I think you got hit by a car, you had both your legs broken.
Yeah.
Just kind of had to, find a way.
Yeah.
You chose not to just be a kid that was going to be stuck in that wheelchair. I think they told you, like, you ain't going to walk normal again.
Mm-hmm.
It's something, right? And
Yeah.
what you just said about getting uncomfortable, whether it's mental or physical, I've been doing a lot of recent podcasts, and that is like this common theme by a lot of these, I know successful is a very generalized term, but these are like I interviewed my buddy Brian Chantosh, who's basically, he's a legend in the Marines. You mention his name, and they're like, and he's like, dude, just suck a little bit less every day. You see
That's
something
it.
on that floor, pick it up. You don't want to work out, just do one set, and you're already 100% more than zero.
So if you want to know how to get these fire departments better, you get them to suck a little bit less every day. You don't worry about trying to go, hey, you guys can only deadlift 170 pounds average. We need to get that to 400 next week. No, you get it to 400 in 5 years. Yeah. And that's the one thing that Charles said to me that it's always stuck with me, Poliquin, is that people tend to overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5.
Yeah. They're looking at, I would say, everybody wants results yesterday.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what gave me the edge of being where I'm at now, is the fact that I was always underdogged. I was 6 years old and in a fucking wheelchair. My dad died at 13. We were poor. I didn't know it until I got older and started making money and realized how bad my mom had it, And with all that being said, I always had to dig myself out. I remember the first time I ever went to a national meet. I got second place, which was pretty good. But the first guy that beat me by a shitload. And I could tell that his training was probably a little better and his genetics were better than mine. And I ran into guys like that my whole career, but I outlasted all of them. I outworked them, and I kept going. I kept my head down, and I got a little bit better every year. And then by the time I was 28, I was breaking world records, and I was on top for 10 years. But the point is that I always ran into people before that were better than me. Yes. Always. And there will always be someone that's better than you at something, either educationally, they're better book smart, they're better physically. But the point is, that are you worried about keeping your head down and putting your foot one step forward every day? I had to outlast everyone. I couldn't just come out and be the freak, Yeah,
I've been, you and I, connected online from early days. We were on the Elite FTS Q&A staff. So yep. I didn't even own a gym. So it was over 10 years ago. And, that is the tough thing for guys that are online or coaches in general, is that we think that because of this overabundance of information, people are going to show up better prepared or more ready to follow through. But I just have not found it the case. No. Notice you train, and also somebody asked, how did you get started? So for the guy that asked how Matt got started, when this gets posted, the beginning is how Matt spoke about how people found out about him in the fire departments. And also it's not Matt.
That I had distinct advantage because I knew early on that I had to have high schooling, and the reason was that because when I started in high school, I came from a small town in Indiana. The only strength coach was at the local college. We didn't have a strength coach in high school, and this was the 90s. So there still wasn't a lot of strength coaches, a lot of places other than the higher level colleges.
Correct.
And, but I was fortunate enough that I went to high school, but I lived in a college town, so I had a couple older friends. And one of these older friends named Sean had a buddy he went to high school with that was an accountant for the Colts. And John Torring was the strength coach down there. And I didn't even realize that the pro football guys had a strength coach. And I was thinking, man, that'd be awesome if I worked in pro football. That sounds like right up my alley. I can work with the top level guys, and I can just be weight training, and it'd be awesome. I'm 17 at the time. So he calls his buddy, this accountant at the Colts, and he's like, hey, they got a strength coach down here. You ought to come and talk to him. So I went and job shadowed John Torring for a couple of days. And John, at 17 years old, told me, you're going to have to get a master's degree if you want this kind of job. Mm-hmm. So that's when my whole life changed, because now I realized I couldn't just be a meathead and do what I wanted to do. I had to go and get the schooling. That was really a big eye-opener at 17, because I had fucked off pretty hard in high school and didn't have the grades to get into college, which this is a lot. All this is in my manual. But basically what happens is that I actually get rejected into Ball State. I didn't realize Ball State was one of the top exercise science programs in the world at that time. It was just my home school. It was the only place I could afford to go to. And long story short is I go sit in academics, to academic advising, and they pull my file up. And this guy, he looked familiar that was doing my stuff. And he's like, hey, your grades weren't good enough in high school. That's why they rejected you. Because I think I only had like a 2.2, 2.3 GPA. I mean, I was going through a lot of shit, My dad had died, and, I thought I probably had low levels of ADD and just didn't know it. And actually lifting weights calmed me down in school enough to start learning. So by the time I was a junior and a senior, schooling was catching on, and I was getting better because I was training hard. But when I was a sophomore, I was training, but, I didn't know what I was doing. And so I screwed up a lot of grades as a freshman and sophomore because, whatever. So long story short, this guy recognized me from training at the local YMCA and is like, oh, you're that big guy that works out over at the Y. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, I'll see what I can do. So he started asking me some questions about training. And then what it did was it started showing him that I had a vested interest in getting better. So he went to the academic board and said, hey, I think this guy's a good a gamble to let in. So they let me in my first semester. I got a 3.8 GPA.
Because you were doing what you were studying, what you loved, like it wasn't work for you.
Right.
You have to cut out, Matt?
No, I'm good. I'm okay.
So question for you on your gym. I've noticed powerlifters, and I've also noticed, I think, look like senior citizens in your gym, all kinds. So talk to us about your gym, Ludus Magnus, and what you have going on there. And
I mean, back to my ADD, is I don't like training the same people very much. So I like different challenges. So I've done everything from kids with autism, disabilities, knee replacements, hip replacements. I dabble in, doing the rehab for that. We have older people, and some of the older people I've trained have actually, shown a lot more of things for me on how to train than training the elite people. I have my own lifting team of guys that I've hand selected over the last 5 or 6 years that are my training partners, that we experiment with a lot of different stuff. And then, so I train everybody from all over, just depending on what their goals are. If it's something new, something interesting that I want to try, then we try it.
How do does the older population find out about you?
That's a good question. I think it's just because I've been in town and had my gym in the same place for 10 or 12 years.
Yep.
And I think people find out like, oh, this guy really helped my knee. This guy really helped my dad. This guy really helped mom. So a lot of it's word of mouth.
Is your warehouse kind of like behind stuff, or is it on a main road, or?
It's on a main road into downtown, but it's not a ton of traffic on that road. I wouldn't say it's a main way to get into town.
Yeah.
I don't have a big front signage. If you could drive by my gym in a second and not know that that's what that is in there. And I like it that way because I find that off the road traffic are shitty people to train.
It's very, very true. Even, a lot of people ask me a lot of business questions, and I try to explain, like, listen, you want, if people are coming to your gym that are the wrong people, your website should state from the gate, like, here's who this is for, and here's the prices as well. But the other day I had a kid come to the gym, and the dad didn't even read the website. He had the kid sign up for everything, and it says on the website, do not sign this if you're under 18. Do not sign this if you haven't read the entire website. And people, just because of Instagram and Facebook and doing this with your finger, like 5 seconds of attention, people don't read stuff. So it was interesting to hear. I always said to myself, I wonder how, what kind of people are finding out about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, showing up there. So what do people do? They sign up for membership, or do they sign up where they have to train with you or another coach? How does it work?
So most of the training I do, so I have, and this has changed a lot in the last year or so. I got a guy named Teddy that works for me. He's got his master's degree under, Brent Alvar that used to run Rocky Mountain State. I don't know if you know him. He's done a lot of military studies.
Okay.
But he runs the PhD and master's program at Rocky Mountain State, which is out in Utah. He just finished his master's online, got his undergrad from Capital, which is a university here in town. He helps me train people, and he does a lot of the online coaching now because I just don't have time for it. And he's got the I have because he's been around me for 6 years. So I didn't let him do any of the online coaching until he had been at my for 6 years, learning under me. And then when he finished his master's, I gave him that responsibility. I got a lady over there that's lost 125 pounds. She's my weight loss coach. So if you come to me and your major goal is to lose weight, she does it my style, but she does the people. I don't really like dealing with the weight loss stuff anymore because it's just too much. Oh, I had a bad day yesterday. I had a bad day that,
Right.
I don't do well with excuses.
Me neither.
So I deal with a certain amount of people, and I have about, being in the area for the last 10 years, I have a base set of clients that I've had for at least 6 or 7 that are pretty much who I work with, and you got to be pretty driven to get into that group. And you have to also fit my time. I work from 8 to noon, so I'm lazy. So I don't do a lot of crazy 10, 12 hours because I still like to train hard myself.
Yeah.
And then now with the fire departments getting super busy, it gets hard to have that gym open 12, 14 hours a day. So we have a good base of trainers there now. But basically what we do is I usually let people, when they come in to train, it's a certain price, but they have to pay me up front from anywhere from 1 month to 2 months, depending on how I feel them out. That way they're vested in me and they're not allowed to make up any of those sessions. So if this is the training times, then this is what it is. This is what it costs.
Yeah.
That way it's all up front.
Do you track the training on paper or through like a software? What do you do?
Well, that's a good question. It's probably back to my laziness, but no, I don't find that really the training needs tracked a whole lot other than where their max lifts are and all that stuff. Because I deal with such a limited amount of people. I'm not dealing with 20, 30, 40 at a time. I'm dealing with upwards. I usually let 5 people train with me per hour, hour and a half tops. So I have a pretty good memory of where people are. And then what I do is with my groups is, let's say, you're in pretty good shape, Zach. So if you came in, you'd probably have to work out with my 11 o'clock group because they're all in good shape. I wouldn't put you with my 9 o'clock group of beginners. So then what I do is all the people that I have trained for 5, 6 years, they're kind of my assistant coaches. So my clients are my coaches that help. So when you get into a group, I'm not just standing around, I'm the only coach. If I train you to see the weaknesses to where if I put you in a group, you got your team of guys that you're working with are coaching you just as much as I am. The team absorbs you as the family.
Yeah, I think that's such a powerful way because otherwise they can't think for themselves if it's always Matt is the guy and nobody does anything unless Matt says so. But they have to be able to think for themselves. I even made a video recently where I said, I almost think these independent gyms like what I own are hurting kids, meaning, 8th graders, 10th graders show up and they don't know how to place their hands on a bar to curl it. And it's like, I want them to figure that out on your own. Like, what did we read? Arnold's Encyclopedia. I think that's a great book because it talks about training partners, environment. It talks about dedication, it talks about intensity. It talks about a lot of, foundational elements of getting strong.
You're right.
Maybe not the best programming, but I think when I start looking at like, why can't this kid do 5 push-ups? Like, what's going on in phys ed class? Or is this kid not reading books that inspire him to do push-ups? Is he not watching Rocky where he wants to go out and sprint and chop wood? So sometimes I look at the gym.
That's why you don't see a lot of high school kids at my gym. You find people that have found me that have already been lifting for 5 or 10 years and maybe just doing some small things wrong, and they need higher guidance, but they don't need basics. So a lot of my people that work for me train some people that need the basic knowledge, but I'm to the point now, I'm just so far beyond being able to deal with that anymore that people find me and maybe their hand position's wrong on the bench, but it's not like they look terrible. Or maybe their squat isn't as deep as it should be, or they're not pushing out, but it's not like they don't know how to at least traditionally squat. So I find that people, because of the way I've set up my business, people that have found me already have that baseline knowledge. So it kind of hand filters it out anyway. Now, I'm not saying the case all the time, but most of the time, I'm not very disappointed when people walk off the street and already know who I am. They're already, I wouldn't say great lifters, but they're already decent compared to somebody at like a Lifetime Fitness or something.
Right.
So that helps to have that business set up the way it's set up because it already pre-filters that kind of out.
Yeah, that's something that I think people out there who are opening gyms, need to find a way to really craft, like, who do you want to work with? How do they find out about you? And I like what you're doing, working from 8 a.m. to noon so you could train hard later. You've written a lot of books recently. You said earlier you're really getting uncomfortable with a lot of things, and it's pretty evident you're really pushing.
But that's the other thing too, is I think you have to balance out also. I know my limitations and what I have the energy for. I'm a very good coach for about 4 hours a day. After that, I'm horrible because I'm tired. Yeah. And I know that, and I want to be high quality. I don't want to be high quantity.
Yeah. How's your, I want to close out with this. How's your nutrition looking now that you're done competing in powerlifting? I see you still moving a lot of weight, and I heard kind of how you were eating when you were with Mark. You kind of go to a restaurant, you get a steak and a salad, but what's your nutrition looking like?
So I'm following a lot of so Stan Efferding and Michael Hearn are helping me out a lot right now with my dieting. My body weight's down about 29 pounds since November. So I'm just slowly leaning out, pulling away some of the carbs. We've just now introduced carbs back in to kind of refeed the muscle fueling because I'm training pretty hard. So what I'm trying to do is get my weight down as far as I can and maintain as much strength as possible. So Stan's helping me with that. So we do
How many meals a day are you eating? Around about 5?
I'd say 5. Yeah, 5 or 6. And I've noticed my weight's starting to stay pretty consistent, about 269.
Yep.
But my body fat's starting to come off. I'm starting to actually get abs, and I weigh 270.
Are you drinking meal replacement shakes or protein shakes?
That's the thing is, so if you read a lot of Stan's stuff, he's very anti processed foods. Now, I will say I use ATP Labs makes it a wonderful beef protein that tastes good, but it also, like, I can drink it and eat a meal in 30 minutes. It doesn't cause any down in my stomach like a whey does.
Yeah.
But I'm not a huge fan of supplementation to replace food. So Stan has me eating a lot of rice, a lot of meat. We do a lot of bison, a lot of hamburger, a lot of ground chicken. Keep the fats up pretty decent. So it's a ketogenic diet with carb timing.
Around the workouts?
Yeah.
Now, do you want to give a quick tour of the fire department weight room?
Yeah. Yeah, you want to see it? Let me flip this around. I'll talk a little bit about it.
And then we could close out the video from there.
Yeah.
Great.
So you're going to see this gym probably has more than, most quality equipment has more than most places have. So we have a belt squat, which they don't have my belt squat because I wasn't making it when we first got this.
Okay.
Then we have a reverse hyper. This helps with the lower back injuries, getting the lower back stronger. We have a glute ham raise. We have leg curl machine. We got dumbbells all the way up to hundreds. We got kettlebells. We got chains that we use pretty consistently. We got bands. We have, obviously a squat rack. We got a safety bar.
Nice.
We got over there, you can see in the corner, we got a football bar, a fat bar, and a bamboo bar.
Yep.
And then we have a cable crossover machine, seated calves for knee health, row machine. So we got pretty much everything you need. We got a competition bench with banded pegs, which I make my own now. But back when we had this stuff, I didn't make mine.
You're making your own bench now with banded pegs?
We have a comp bench. Actually, the first one that we're making right now, I just got rid of, and we just made a new model, and it's going to be at the gym for the Arnold. So you can come and try it out if you guys are you coming to the Arnold, Zach?
I don't, because it's always the weekend of the New Jersey State Wrestling Tournament. So we have
Oh, I got you.
We have sometimes 20 kids in the States. So I don't go. I don't know if I'm traveling with my university. Our national tournament's in Cleveland.
Yep.
I don't, but I'm probably going with them on a bus. So I'm not going to have much time. My goal is to try to meet up with you. And I'm going to link, for everybody who's listening, Matt has some seminars coming up around the country, Seattle, Pennsylvania. So we're going
to Seattle's going to be March 17th.
Yep.
It's going to be at Linwood CrossFit. And then I have that one, I think, is it Bethlehem? Is that the right pronunciation?
Yeah.
Bethlehem, Pennsylvania in June, was it 23rd?
Yep.
June 23rd. So I'll be pretty close to where you're at.
Yes.
I'll be there.
That's near Lehigh University. Are you driving your motorcycle out to Seattle?
No, shit, man. The problem is it's too early in the year, so it's going to be way too cold. If it was maybe July, I'd consider it. So my big motorcycle ride this year, I'm going to have my bike shipped to L.A., and then I'm going to train at Gold's with Mike O'Hearn and all those guys, and then I'm going to ride all the way and cover all the southern states and then come to South Carolina and then come back home. So most of my rides have been in the north.
What are you going to South Carolina? Stopping in South Carolina?
I don't know where I don't know what I'm gonna do in South Carolina yet. I know quite a few people in North Carolina, but I'm not a ton of friends with people in South Carolina. I just don't know that many people there.
Yeah.
But
connect with Travis Mash when you get to North Carolina.
Yeah, I've been trying to do a podcast with him, but the last time I tried to get on his Skype, my Wi-Fi was screwing up at the house, so we didn't end up doing
what?
it.
North Carolina, connect with Mash, and I'm sure Big House Joe Ken would love to see you.
Yeah, I need to be out there. He's been trying to get me to come down there. He's got 3 of my belt squats down there.
I saw it, and it's like, I need to get your belt squat. I often think about it, not so much just for the gym, but my own kids are 9 and 11.
Yeah.
And they have such a passion for their sports. They talk about what their goals are, and I say to myself, well, Daddy's going to have to build a special gym for these kids.
Let me know, because if you do, what I'll have you do is you can come down for a weekend and train at my place, and we'll shoot shows and stuff. But then if you pick it up from here, I can cut you a really good deal.
Yeah, my wife's got an F-150 truck. I don't know if it would fit in the in the F-150 bed.
Yep, easily. I had it'll fit by like a half an inch in a normal bed.
Yeah, nice. And you're not far. Ohio's like an 8-hour drive from Jersey.
Yeah, it's not too bad. If you can make it across PA, that's pretty boring.
Yeah, I don't mind the drive. Well, dude, this has been great. This is going up on YouTube, iTunes. For everybody listening, Matt's website is wenningstrength.com, on Instagram at @realmattwenning, and doing amazing stuff, books, seminars. I'll link everything up at zachevanesh.com. Matt, this was great. And for those of you listening, if you want to see the tour of the Firehouse Gym, you're going to have to go on YouTube. It's going to be on my page at @zevanesh. I think I'll be able to load this video onto Facebook as well.
Yeah, I find that most fire departments need what I have. It's definitely. I'll post the results on the insurance premiums, and you can see what this equipment's done over the last 10 years.
Love it. Cool. Matt, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, my man.
All right, buddy.
Everybody. Later.